Making headlines this hour, Housing Minister says that recipients for the 704 housing flats developed in Hulumala will be selected from amongst applicants in February 2017. MRDC concludes laying down allocated roads in Thinadhu Island of Kaftal Atoll. And US allowed the UN Security Council to adopt a resolution demanding an end to Israeli settlements.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to News in English on TVM with me, Hafiz Abdusattar. And now the news in detail. A fire breaks out on a vessel which was fishing nearby Gafar Island of Kaf Atoll. Maldives National Defence Force says no one was injured in the fire on board vessel Kurangi. MNDF says the 63-feet vessel was out fishing off the eastern coast of Agafaru when the incident occurred. Citing crew of the vessel, MNDF said the fire broke out on the generator of the vessel. MNDF Coast Guard official provided assistance to control the fire and rescue the crew of the vessel. Housing Minister says that recipients for the 704 housing flats developed in Hulumale will be selected from amongst applicants in February 2017. Housing Minister Dr. Muhammad Moiz said that currently final works of the apartments are being made and that people will begin residing in the flats by end of February. According to the Housing Ministry, over 15,000 applications were received for the 704 housing units. Housing Ministry is currently conducting efforts to review applications and inspect the living conditions of the applicants in order to ensure flats are provided to the most deserving. These flats were developed as part of the government's social housing scheme, which aims to alleviate housing constraints faced by residents. Maldives Road Development Corporation (MRDC) concludes laying a tar on allocated roads in Thinadhu Island of Kaftal Atoll. Regional Manager of MRDC Azim Hussain said that they are now working on the final phase of the project, which includes laying pavement blocks on the pavement. Azim said that flooding caused in some roads of the island will be resolved once the road development project is complete. He said works to set up a drainage system in roads which flood are underway. Election Commission says that required minimum voters registration has not been met from foreign countries where ballot boxes were to be placed for the local council elections. EC earlier announced plans to place ballot boxes in Trivandrum, India and Colombo, Sri Lanka for the local council elections to be held next year. EC says they plan to set up ballot boxes in the two locations, given that at least 2,000 voters registered to cast ballots in each location. EC added that so far the number of registered voters does not even come close to the required minimum amount. Member of Elections Commission Ismail Habib said that so far only 110 people have registered to vote from Trivandrum, while 580 have registered to vote from Colombo. He added that most resorts have also not been able to obtain enough voters registration to set up ballot boxes in individual resorts. As per EC regulations, a minimum number of voters required to register to vote in the resort has to be 100. Habib said only 6 resorts have been able to obtain the required number of voters. EC estimates that over 70,000 people will register to vote away from their home during the upcoming local council elections, but so far only around 30,000 re-registrations have been made. The Commission attributes the low number of re-registration due to postponement of the election by 2 months from previously stated date in January. Defence Minister Adam Sharif says the safety policy to prevent disastrous incidents at warehouses, workshops, cafes and restaurants will be publicized during January 2017. MNDF is conducting an inspection operation of warehouses, cafes, restaurants and other businesses to ensure that safety measures in place in order to avoid fires and other incidents which could result casualties and damages to properties. According to MNDF, they have already inspected 744 business establishments under their special operation. During the operation, MNDF is determining whether such establishments comply with necessary building codes and fire safety measures. Defense Minister Adam Sharif said that they are now drafting a safety and security policy based on their findings during the inspection operation. Minister added that once the policy is publicized in January, they will provide business establishments 3 days to implement the policy. He added that a report based on the findings of the inspection will be shared with all government institutions upon conclusion of the operation. In business, we have China's Commerce Ministry says the country's commercial relationship with the United States won't change when Donald Trump takes office in January. Shen Danyang, spokesman of the Chinese Commerce Ministry, made the remarks at a press conference in Beijing. He said that China and the U.S. have a convergence of interest in terms of economic and trade relations. He added that there is a mutually beneficial and win-win economic and trade relationship between the two countries, regardless of changes in the U.S. government. Locals rushed to markets to get essential commodities as a curfew was relaxed in parts of the northeastern Indian city of Imphal, which has been reeling under an economic blockade imposed by an influential tribal organization for over 50 days.
The influential United Naga Council UNC, which has been campaigning for the rights of the minority Naga tribes of Manipur province, blocked the landlocked state's 2 main national highways on November 1st in protest against the state government's move to create 7 more districts. The situation deteriorated last week when people residing in the plains went on a rampage, burning several buses and destroying public property and forcing the state government to impose a curfew. The federal government also swung into action and sent paramilitary personnel to control the situation. As the situation began to ease, the state government began lifting curfew in parts of the state capital for a brief period. Business establishments reopened and people were seen making purchases at roadside markets as curfew was relaxed from Lamlong Bridge to Pangai area for 11 hours on Saturday. But the blockade of the remote states' arterial roads has choked the supply of essential commodities, resulting in spurge in prices. Fuel prices have also shot up. Indian Army Chief Dilbar Singh also reached Imphal on Saturday to review the security situation in the wake of the economic blockade. Locals welcome signs of normalcy in the state as the blockade paralyzed normal life. UNC claims that the government is taking away Naga majority hill areas and creating new districts for the Kuki tribes who also reside in the hills. Nagas, who are in a minority in Manipur, accuses the Congress party-led government of pleasing Kukis ahead of next year's state polls. India's junior Interior Minister Kiren Rijiju visited Imphal on Friday to review the situation after state opposition parties met with the Interior Minister Rajnath Singh in New Delhi seeking the federal government's intervention. Civil society groups have also called on UNC for talks to lift its economic blockade. As in much of India's underdeveloped northeast, Manipur has been the scene of recurring strife between the ethnic and religious groups since independence from British rule in 1947. The state is one of the 7 northeastern provinces attached to the rest of the India by a thin strip of territory arcing above Bangladesh. In culture and ethnicity, its people have more similarities with Southeast Asia than mainland India.
The United States allowed the UN Security Council to adopt a resolution demanding an end to Israeli settlements, defying pressure from US President-elect Donald Trump, Israel and some US lawmakers who urged Washington to yield its veto.
An abstention by the United States paved the way for the 15-member council to approve the resolution with 14 votes in favor to a round of applause. The Obama administration's action broke with the long-standing American approach of shielding Israel, Washington's longtime ally that receives more than $3 billion in annual U.S. military aid from such action. The United States, along with Russia, France, Britain and China, has veto power on the council. The resolution, put forward by New Zealand, Malaysia, Venezuela and Senegal a day after Egypt withdrew it under pressure from the Israel and Trump, was the first adopted by the Council on Israel and the Palestinians in nearly 8 years.
Against this backdrop, one Council resolution in nearly 8 years is not disproportionate. It is shameful. But today's vote rectifies this record and set us on a new course.
The U.S. abstention was seen as a parting shot by Obama, who has had an acrimonious relationship with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and who has made settlements a major target of peace efforts that have proven ultimately fertile. The resolution demanded that Israel immediately and completely cease all settlement activities in the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem, and said the establishment of settlements by Israel has no legal validity and constitutes a flagrant violation under international law. The Palestinians want an independent state in the West Bank, Gaza and East Jerusalem, areas Israel captured in a 1967 war.
Who gave you the right to issue such a decree, denying our eternal rights in Jerusalem? Would this council have had the nerve to condemn your country for building homes in your capital? We overcame those decrees during the time of the Maccabees, and we will overcome this evil decree today. We have full confidence in the justice of our cause and in the righteousness of our path. We will continue to be a democratic state.
Under the UN Charter, UN member states agree to accept and carry out the decisions of the Security Council. The passage of the resolution changes nothing on the ground between Israel and the Palestinians and likely will be all but ignored by the incoming Trump administration.
The passengers of a plane that was hijacked and diverted to Malta returned to Tripoli's Mytika International Airport on Saturday. The Airbus A320 had been on an internal flight in Libya on a Friday morning when it was diverted to Malta, 500 kilometers north of the Libyan coast, after a man told the crew he had a hand grenade. The aircraft, operated by state-owned Africa Airways, had been flying from Sabha in southwest Libya to Tripoli. The hijackers were armed with what they were probably replica weapons. They freed the hostages unharmed and surrendered, having declared loyalty to Libya's late leader Muammar Gaddafi. One passenger said he had been seated next to the two hijackers and said they had tried to create trouble. The pair have been arrested. Syrian civilians returned to the heavily damaged neighborhoods of Ansri and Zabdia in eastern Aleppo for the first time in 5 years and following the full evacuation of rebels. The Syrian army said it had retaken Aleppo completely and brought security and safety back to the city as the last group of rebel fighters was evacuated. The rebel evacuation leaves the battered city entirely under the control of the army and its allies after years of fighting, state television said. The final phase of the evacuation ended when a convoy carrying nearly 150 people, including fighters and members of their families, departed towards rebel-held areas outside the city, state television said. Under a deal brokered by Turkey and Russia, convoys of buses and cars have shuttled thousands of civilians and fighters out of Aleppo's last rebel-held pocket towards opposition areas outside the city since late last week. United Nations Refugee Agency's spokesman told reporters during a news briefing in Geneva that a record number of 5,000 migrants are now believed to have drowned in the Mediterranean Sea since the start of 2016.
A record number of 5,000 migrants are now believed to have drowned in the Mediterranean Sea since the start of 2016, an average of 14 dying every day, UN agencies said, following 2 shipwrecks on Thursday in which around 100 people, mostly from West Africa, are feared to have died.
Around 100 people are feared to have drowned in the Mediterranean Sea yesterday. The Italian Coast Guard carried out 4 rescue operations in the central Mediterranean Sea. These latest tragedies bring the number of casualties in the Mediterranean this year to over 5,000. This is the worst annual death toll ever seen.
On Thursday, 2 overcrowded dinghies capsized in the Strait of Sicily between Italy and Libya, the International Organization for Migration, IMO, and UNHCR said.
In 2 separate incidents, rubber dinghies collapsed and passengers fell into the sea, the Italian Coast Guard reported. The first dinghy was carrying between 120 and 140 people, including many women and children. Only 63 people survived after the dinghy collapsed and passengers fell into the water. The second dinghy was carrying about 120 people and 80 were rescued by the Coast Guard.
Spindler detailed, adding that 175 people were successfully rescued from a third rubber dinghy and from a wooden boat on Thursday as well. In recent weeks, because of European efforts to stop people smugglers by capturing and destroying as many of the fishing boats that these smugglers had been using, the smugglers have increasingly turned to using rubber dinghies, especially unsuitable for the long sea crossing in bad weather. They are overloading them with over 100 people when they can carry no more than 25 to 30 people and then send them at sea in rough seas winter weather.
An average of 14 people have died every day in the Mediterranean Sea during 2016, the highest number ever recorded. Last year, when over 1 million people crossed the Mediterranean, 3,771 casualties were recorded.
The UNHCR repeated its call to states to open up more legal pathways for admitting refugees.
3 people were missing while 5 others were rescued after a boat overturned in a lake in India's western Mumbai city. According to police, the incident took place when a boat with 8 people overturned in the Powai lake. The victims had gone for a party. 5 people were saved by locals. Police inspector said the cause of the accident was not known. Rescue operation began at the crack of dawn. Indian Foreign Ministry spokesperson says India is ready for talks with Pakistan if the neighbouring country ensures a peaceful atmosphere.
India is ready for talks with Pakistan provided the latter ensures a peaceful atmosphere, said Foreign Ministry spokesperson Vikas Swarup. Swarup was addressing reporters in New Delhi in a weekly news conference. This statement came days after Pakistan Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif said during his visit to Bosnia that his country wanted an amicable settlement of issues with India. India and Pakistan have been at odds over Kashmir ever since their independence nearly 70 years ago, fighting 2 of their 3 wars over the Himalayan region that they each rule in part but claim in full. The latest round of problem between the nuclear-armed neighbours began with civil unrest in Indian Kashmir and Pakistan's global lobbying against New Delhi's crackdown on the Kashmiri activists. Artillery duels and skirmishing along the disputed frontier between India and Pakistan, which runs through Kashmir, has intensified, leading to deaths of civilians and soldiers stationed along both sides. Swarup said it was a prerequisite for Pakistan to shun violence of any sort for bilateral discussions. This year, after years of decline, militant violence has increased in Kashmir, deepening a chill in ties with Pakistan, whom India blames for stoking and keeping the revolt alive by sending fighters and material across the de facto border. In September, a group of gunmen killed 19 Indian soldiers at an army camp in Kashmir, an attack India blamed on Pakistan-based militants. India said it had carried out surgical strikes inside Pakistan as retribution, but Islamabad denied they even took place and accused New Delhi of fabrication to distract attention from its crackdown on protesters in the part of Kashmir it controls.
In sports, we have Barcelona forward Neymar led a team of Brazilian celebrities to a 39 victory over Atletico Mineiro, Hobios and friends in a charity match in Sao Paulo. The teams also paid tribute to the Chapecoense soccer club. Most of Chapecoense's team, coaches and staff were killed in a plane crash in Colombia as they traveled to the finals of the Copa Sudamericana last month. Proceeds from the game were to be donated to charity organizations including Neymar's Instituto Proyecto Neymar Jr. Neymar also said he hopes his Argentine teammate at Barcelona, Lionel Messi, resigns with the team. Former England head coach Sam Allardyce has been confirmed as the new manager of English Premier League side Crystal Palace. Allardyce, who previously managed Bolton Wanderers, Blackburn Rovers and West Ham, takes over from Alan Purdue, who was sacked earlier this week. His new role means Allardyce returns to football for the first time since losing his position as England manager after just one game earlier this year in the wake of a newspaper investigation which featured a video of him offering advice on how to get around FA rules on players' transfers. Before summing up, we'll look at the light news. French Beatles lover will auction off his collection of 15,000 albums and photographs, books and other memorabilia to fund his retirement and regain normalcy in his living space.
Jacques Walcouve was 6 years old when he first listened to A Hard Day's Night. The Beatles album from 1964 launched a collection that has grown into the shelves of nearly 15,000 vinyl records, one of the largest in France. Statuettes of the Fab Four, a metallic John Lennon figurine, rare album editions and black and white photos are among the objects he has accumulated for over 4 decades, in addition to books, photographs, clippings, compact and laser discs, tapes and other memorabilia. He travelled around Europe to buy records, some editions manufactured from as far as Thailand and Japan. His Beatles collection occupies 68 square meters of storage space and a good part of his Paris apartment. It reached a point wherein he could no longer invite guests to his home and the dust from the records triggered asthma attacks. After having spent all his life nurturing his love for the Beatles, the 60-year-old has decided to auction off his collection to fund his retirement. Vinyl experts have spent weeks sifting through Walcouve's collection, after which they will appraise each item's value and construct a catalogue. It will be divided by theme into 350 lots for the auction. With a concert to kick it off, the sale will take place on March 18th at the Hotel du Gou auction house in Paris, and bids can also be done from anywhere over the phone and the internet. Walcouve, who has written or co-authored 9 books on the Beatles, will introduce the items during the auction and will be weaving in some Beatles history and personal anecdotes. This 60-year-old said he is happy to let go of his life's work, but he will keep some favorite records, personal letters from George Harrison and Ringo Starr, and a belt buckle brought from Harrison's label Dark Horse Records.
And that's all we have for this hour. Thank you for watching. Wish you all a very pleasant night ahead.